Hello, alchemists. Welcome or welcome back. My name is Ava, aka Queen Midas Life Alchemist, and I'm here again with Joel. You all, he's located at the channel Perceiver on YouTube, so please make sure you check it out. His link will be down below as well. How are you doing today, Joel?
Really well, Ava. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. It's so nice to see you again. Like our last talk was so intriguing, and I think both of our subscribers really enjoyed it. So I'm excited to dive into this.
Good to see you as well. It's always a pleasure and appreciate what you're doing. It's
Yeah.
the invite.
Thank you. Okay, you all. So on this tribe talk today, we're going to dive into the concept of hell. What it really mean, like what it means. Is it a physical place? Is it a state of mind? What might be some things that someone experiences if and when they're there, emotions, whatever. So I have a quote here that is, I keep bringing this book up in my videos, but I'm in a mentoring group right now, and this is one of the books that we're reading, A Return to Love. This is reflections on the principles of A Course in Miracles by Marianne Williamson, and I'll also link this in my description box below. But there is the very first chapter is talked about, it's hell. That's the name of the first chapter. And there is a quote that I wrote here. Our oppression is internal. The government isn't holding us back. Our hunger or poverty. We're afraid. Our fear is fear floating. So one thing that I've really come to realize is, I mean, we hear a lot, perception, our perception is our reality. So if that's the case, our experiences, the internal or external environment, circumstances, things that come our way, a lot, I'd say more often than not, are a reflection of our internal world. Whether it be fears from relationships, being in the wrong one, being in the right one, fear of failure, fear of success, fear of death, fear of being seen or not seen, aging, not living fully in our authenticity. So, how do you feel about our perception leading us to a state of hell or of it? Yeah, I'll start there.
Yeah, wonderful question. Powerful topic. It's very everything you said is absolutely accurate, and that's a level of self-responsibility that one has to take that changes everything. And the fact that we try to dance around that and come up with people to blame for our situation is what keeps us as a victim. Whether it's because even when we get sick and we're at odds with the poison that the world is pushing on us, to be at odds with anything is to give it power, more power than we are, than our own, that we strip ourselves of our own power, and we try to push the responsibility separate from our own ability to perceive a much more beautiful environment, which is within. It's internal, it's with your thoughts, the feelings you're feeling. And so you end up, through the journey of discovering the ego, you're going to go through challenges. And these, what we think are mistakes, are actually lesson plans designed for us to discover. And if people think they can skirt around or go through this world without trauma and learn, then they're mistaken. You can't live in a bubble. The world will come for you in every way. It's just, if we run from it and try to hide from it, then we separate ourselves from source. Mm-hmm. And so it's simple, but it's not easy to get simple, to return to that simplicity. So there's so many layers to this. It's just so multifaceted. Like our energy level, it rises and it lowers. And a shaman can see that and observe a person and tell where their energy level is. Actually, like, there's a luminous cocoon that surrounds every living creature. And you can tell whether a person's sick, whether a person's happy, just by observing them from this psychedelic, altered shamanic place. And they see that there's this film that surrounds the torus field. And that film is either way down low or it's super high. And if you can get it to tap out at the upper chakra, I mean, if it can close the door, then you are like surrounded by pure affection. You've built your energy up. You figured out how to live in that heightened awareness, and you start to live in a state of, but that takes decades to get to that place, and a lot of people pretend that they're there. It's a very real, I mean, we all achieve this state for moments, and then we have insight and clarity and feel our power, and we know more about ourselves, and then it drops, and then we're like, oh, what's going on? And we try to figure out ways to balance that out. And so that down at the heels is what people call, that's what hell, the word's from, is that the energy is dropped down to your heels. There's a force that's figured out how to, the architect of this dream that we're in is the hive mind. Mm-hmm. It's this part of us that's constantly gauging our self-worth on how people perceive us. So shamans shatter the mirror of self-reflection by falling in love with the world itself, with the mother, with nature, with light and darkness and all of it. And so your energy will rise, and you'll stop being linked to the drama of this world, which can pull you into all kinds of fear and anxiety and discontentment. And so it's a tricky dance, because how does one get to the place of gratitude for their life to the point that they're no longer trying to create something, that is unattainable? If we can accept where we're at and be at peace with the lessons that the universe is providing us, then we're not resisting. We're acquiescing to the lesson plan, and the fear diminishes, and all this incredible change occurs. But we all have to walk through hell and have had that experience in order to be able to support others who are going through it. Otherwise, what good would we be, and so it's when we're thankful for the lesson plan, then we change. Instead of giving it power, we're saying thank you, and it changes your perception. When you're saying thank you instead of why me? Why is this happening? Please make it stop. Please, it's a resistance, a contraction that makes you fragile energetically. But if you're buoyant and expansive and heart-based, then you can traverse really difficult circumstances. And so, we're all given opportunities to learn this lesson intimately. We all have holes in our consciousness. And so every one of us has really difficult lessons to learn in different facets of life. And so rather than being offended by people for being unhealthy or out of balance or angry, we can see their trauma and forgive them, because it's not them. Somebody hurt them, somebody traumatized them. It's all been passed on to everybody. You can't if we're sitting there trying to point fingers, then we separate ourselves from the oneness that we all are, right? So it is all perception, and the perception takes years to adjust. There's no quick pill. There's no fast track out of the hell that we are entangled in, because we're caught in the mass projection. What everybody is dreaming into reality, we are entangled in that. There's a lot of unconscious people allowing the media to determine our reality, or the movies. And so we're being walked into a zombie apocalypse, essentially. That's the intent of the MK Ultra program, is to just watch this whole thing collapse. And it doesn't have to, but we get to figure out how we're going to navigate the changes that are happening within those different types of affected intentions. So hell is a multifaceted subject in that, you know, like Toltecs will take their student and show them the different layers of the onion. And there are other dimensions and actual realms that would be considered afterlife hell too, right? So there, it's not only just this realm that can be hellish or heavenly. There's entire realms that represent what people call internal damnation that a shaman can take you to. And they can also take you to these places on the polar opposite to help you have a reference point for another layer of the onion where it's all just beaming golden light and people are worshiping, and it's an entire other realm. And so we are caught, and that's kind of why we're in the condition we're in, is because we think this is the only layer, that this world is all there is. When shamans discover that there's more, that through lucid dreaming and through shamanic journeying, they figure out how to break free of this contracted matrix projection. It's a phantom world that we're dreaming into. When silence happens to you on a profound level, you start to open up to other possibilities of accessing other layers. And then we're all just novices, because once that door opens, you can start to actually achieve other realms that will heal you. Your nervous system will reset when you're able to traverse energetically. So we're trapped. We're slaves in a realm in which we don't know how to get out of, because we've bought into the drama and we don't know how to slip out of it. So everyone uses psychedelics to get out for a moment, which is potentially a positive thing. It can also be a very difficult negative thing, depending. But when you do get a moment to really see the world how it's meant to be experienced, like mushrooms really teach you, wow, everything's soft and beautiful, and my thoughts make my reality. And you start to see the the simplicity of it. And then everything changes, and you start making that a priority to have access to that. And so rather than eat mushrooms all the time, you can find means to access those states through disciplines, through, prioritizing taking care of your energy differently.
Awesome. You said so much there. Thank you for all of that. So the luminous energy field, I believe that you mentioned, is that the same or similar to an aura?
The aura more represents a slight view of the luminous cocoon, but Toltecs actually go into a deep trance, a state of dreaming, where they're not seeing with their eyeballs at all, but they're seeing from a lucid dreaming position. So their eyes can be closed, their eyes could be open, but they're seeing it as a vision. And people confuse this. They think, oh, seeing energy would happen through the eyes. The eyes unlock all this cool stuff. You can see you can see other interdimensional beings with your eyes. But you can see them a lot better if you can go into a dream state and observe them. You'll see more detail. But when it comes to seeing the luminous cocoon, it's such a devastating thing to have happen to you, because you see and remember that you've always been seeing this. A part of us is conscious of energy, and then the part of us, the archons, are making sure that we don't access that. What Toltecs call them, the flyers. And rather than be at odds with these things, we just accept that it's the perfect force to challenge us. It's designed for us to evolve. It's scripted into the story. Brahma breathed the world out and breathed it back in. Everything plays a role. We're not victims in a situation. We're just so fortunate to be here. All the spirits want in. Everybody wants in on this situation, not out. I mean, some people want out, but the people that are outside of it aren't asking to remain out. Everyone's like, I want to ascend so I don't have to come back.
Yeah.
Not quite that. You'll want back in. It's, anyways, how we, lighten our being enough to experience the fact that we're not physical beings. Then you experience the luminous, you'll feel like you're a ball of light. When you drink enough sunlight or draw enough sunlight into your being, you start to build that film around your torus field where you start to always have the energy you need.
Hmm.
And then you're no longer, the vacation is just as exciting as a day at work because everything is a message, everything's psychedelic. Your cubicle can transform into a space station or whatever you want it to be, as long as your imagination returns to you. You listen to music that transforms your being constantly. Give yourself the desire, the passion all the time to really live, play with life, make use of it rather than try to control it.
Yeah.
It takes a creative adjustment to get out of the slavery that we've been entangled in. We're caught in the material world. It's a real thing. We are materialized. We have become convinced, and we live in fear of, am I going to be alone? What's going to happen to me? Am I going to age gracefully? Am I really, like all these things are, the ego deaths are constant.
Yeah.
They're not, everyone's like, oh, I had mine. Like, no, you started this process, it's on. You're going to get slaughtered, and you got to want that. You got to want to change. Seek it. If you're trying to control or maintain it, and then you project that onto a partner and expect them to resolve things, and then you create a hellish situation in which your own shadow is then manifesting, projecting outwardly, and you get into these power struggles because sex is this exchange of power.
Yeah.
And anytime we pretend it's not and try to treat it, or think of the first time that it happened, that you lost your virginity. Think of the feeling, the energy exchange, the brink. You were in a moment there of intensity, and we just try to bypass it. But if we could learn to really respect the sacredness of it all, we can reclaim all of our youthful energy and all of those moments. We can go back and sort of learn from, right? Because we need the women to remember their power and return to their power so that they can dream forward our evolution. They are the dreamers that determine everything because they have a womb. They have what's called a dreaming box, the box of perception, the place where, but because of that power, we are all put in our place by this force that is unseen. And it's within our thoughts. It tells us and makes us afraid, but it's really just lending us its own fear because it's afraid of being exposed by us. It's afraid that we'll figure out that our thoughts are not our own. We're all thinking generic thoughts. We all have the same fears because there is this archonic force has figured out how to lend us its mind. And that's hell. We're in a situation that is considered to some, this is an inverted world. And you're watching that unfold in fast on the it's been planned. It's part of the design. The predator has figured out, the architect of the matrix has figured out how to capture us in a loop. And so we very much like in the matrix where he shows them all the different times that he's done this before. And he shows them on a video screen that he's had the same reaction every time he's in the same simulation.
Mhm.
We are also are not, we're limitless, non-linear, timeless creatures. So we have no idea how often, how many times we've replayed this same exact situation. My elder said that they keep having to do it over and over because it doesn't go the way they want it to. Those that have the ability to control that dial. And maybe the Mandela effect is associated to that, that we keep marking these different moments in which we replay this same exact storyline. If it is indeed a projected phantom simulated simulacrum, that doesn't take away from how beautiful it all is.
Yeah.
The Earth Mother is still sentient. Our ability to have connection and all of the beautiful potential that comes from having children or dreaming or liberating your perception, right? And so hell serves as a means for us to have a counterbalance. So Toltecs say this is a world of terror, pure terror and beauty. And so you have to access as much beauty as possible in order to awaken, because it's terrifying to realize how powerful you are, because we're so domesticated. It's literally like taking a domesticated animal and putting them into the wilderness. You wouldn't want to just do that. You would want to go and attempt to train them and prepare them somehow slowly and build their strength and build their resiliency zone somehow, if that was possible. Some sort of animal training program that was designed to reintroduce a wolf back into the wild. That would be amazing. We can create that for ourselves.
Yeah.
So we can become wild, and then we won't be as easily enslaved by the drama. It's not that we're enslaved by the Social Security card or all the different things that people think. It's psychedelic. It's you breaking free from, if you were microdosing all the time, not that I recommend that, but if you were always seeing the funniness, how hilarious everything is, you would liberate. You would just stop taking yourself so seriously. And it's through self-importance that we take everything so personal, and we're so offended. And we try to judge men or women or whatever we project our stuff onto, the patriarch or whatever we think it is. It's all just projection. It's when you totally take self-responsibility for the experience you're having. When you do that, you're no longer limiting. The ego is no longer running the show, but the ego will then evolve and try to figure out how to make you feel special in a different way. It advances. And so knowing that, we go slow and just thankful for where we're at rather than wishing we were somewhere else. Right? Often we're like, oh man, if it was just like this, then everything would be okay. But it's not true. There's another challenge waiting for you wherever you're going. I think we're conditioned to think, I just need to get away from challenges. I need it to all stop. But if we turn and face it and walk toward it instead of resisting it, then we'll feel so empowered. And the thing that we thought was so bad, when we stop getting consumed by it or angry at it, we'll see it for what it is, and it will become powerless over us. Mm-hmm. But we have these memories that we can go back, and that the more cringy the memories are, the more potent they are for us to go back and review.
God.
And really sit in the feeling and rewire the blueprint from there. Because that blueprint is going to stalk you until you fix it, until you go back and become the architect of your own blueprint. And the only way to do that is to face your shadow, face those feelings that you felt, and transcend them through laughter, through acceptance, accepting the human condition, accepting that we've been enslaved by a force that is limiting our ability to see energy, accepting our predicament. And then you start to shift, you start to want to be aware of all things rather than just spiritual. Or shamans are not spiritual, they're energetic, they're mature, they're sober, they're intense. But we go through spiritual stages in order to access energy. And then we can drop all the things that got us there because our history is heavy. We want to let go of the past all the time because we have to be a dreamer, you have to be light. But in order to be a dreamer, you have to be grounded, right? If you're not, you'll end up in a mental ward if you try to become lucid without having roots. You got to know how the tree trunk the roots have to grow as far down as the branches would grow upward. And when you understand that, then you stop being at odds with where you're at. We beat ourselves up. Guilt, shame, and all that is actually worse than whatever it is that we're beating ourselves up over.
Yeah.
Right? Our words are that powerful. Our thoughts are so much manifest the hell or heaven that we. And so learning to control your thoughts, learning to not have thoughts, that's incredible. When you don't have thoughts, you're swimming in feelings. When you are just in pure feeling, then you develop pure affection. Pure affection is so much more incredible than just sexual desire. It's like the child. It's like innocent mixed with being a lucid shamanic dreamer. And once you understand that sexual energy and dreaming energy are the very same thing, then you start really taking care of your sexual energy in a means that would allow you to use it for both. That way, you're not in expectation with your partner. You can get to just a total place of actually being able to accept rather than try to force anything in any way, which is so difficult. We're so geared towards, we're driven towards, or especially men are driven toward the act rather than the process, the unfolding. And we, rather than hold space for a woman to unveil or to blossom, and to learn to slow it all down and then switch from that sensuality into the dreaming while like learning to just change it. Because when you build sexual energy, you can switch into the lucid. And so really, we are a product of sex. And if we could learn how to harness that energy and use it to activate our awareness and start to see energy, then we could take ourselves out of the hell that the majority of the world is in. These archonic forces make us focus on the fear of not having a partner, the fear of aloneness, the fear of not being loved, not being seen as beautiful, but true beauty is the fact that you've witnessed beauty, right? That you've been transcended by something so beautiful that it's rearranged your inner environment. Allowing ourselves to fall in love with our life rather than others. You become whole and you will magnetically manifest someone who's also doing the same thing, who's patient and waiting and trusting rather than settling for anything at all. And that really empowers you when you just stop looking. Stop. Instead of longing for somebody, you long to know yourself so intimately that you, yeah, like, and this is what breaks one free from one of the main ways in which we're kept in that prison of fear.
Yeah. So, oh, thank you for all of that. So amazing. And you, I have notes here, but and you've honestly kind of like brushed over all the parts that I wanted to talk about. So I just love the flow of our conversations. And I love that you talked about lack of responsibility several minutes ago. And we live in a freaking snowflake world right now where it's, oh my gosh, you can't say that and you can't call me. Everybody's out to be butthurt about something.
Totally.
Everybody's out to be, and it's this fake inclusiveness by creating division.
Yeah.
Through victimization and gaslighting and like being offended and ultimately being in fear of like being found out or discovered, and and you even touched on this, by the way, you all. Joel's last video, he dropped it a couple weeks ago. It's episode 52. I'll put it like in my video somewhere. It'll pop up sometime during this video, but watch that because he actually discusses a bunch of the things that we're talking about today. But a lot of that lack of responsibility, like people also try to, they be like 56 talking about my mom did this to me, sir, you have a doctorate, you're running a multi-billion-dollar company to still talk about mom, like what? You know what I mean? And it's like you said though, where the archons they've created this holographic, essentially lie that we're moving through, but we're here for the soul evolution and for the friction to grow and expand. But a lot of the stuff that's out there is to disrupt our root chakra and our base energy, because once you destabilize all of that, everything else leading up to our connection to divinity and knowing who and what and how powerful we are is disrupted as well. And don't quite remember where I was going with that, but that's just what flew out.
The thing to bring up though is a lot of people are about living in the upper chakra.
Yeah.
We have to heal our entire energetic being, and there isn't like the consciousness isn't stored up in the head.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of heaven, heaven, hell heals. When we rise our energy up, and that means we've mastered all chakras starting at the root. And if we try, everyone wants to skip the root chakra and not do the real work, but that's where we're most, we've all been MK Ultra'd, we've all been abused in some form. So healing on a holistic level rather than attempting to stay in some sort of separate embrace the physical, embrace the body. That's where you're going to get back into your ability to feel through your anger, your power. Allow the anger to come out, otherwise it's going to repress.
Yeah.
Right.
Spiritual bypassing, isn't that what it's called? When it's just like it's essentially like this kind of maybe self-righteousness and like holier than thou type feeling, even if it's just an internal thing, because it's like I'm too holy to even address like the crap within me, because that's really what it comes back to. So I'm glad that you brought that up, because that's where I wanted to go, is turning back to the root of our own issues. And you talked about people that are addicted to intel on your video, and I've talked about that too. It's like I used to know all this other what was going on in Bangladesh and like all these random, not really, but like I just was like, trying to know what was going on because I'm just such a curious mind and like I want to know. But then I realized like we're told one thing one day and then we promise this and blah blah blah, and it's all a freaking distraction. All of it, all of it's a distraction from us dealing with our own crap. And if everybody would just go in and address their traumas and their fears and the ancestral crap that they're carrying, and you know, come to terms with that, acknowledge, come to terms, transmute it to disrupt that programming and heal it. When we're doing that on the individual level, we're doing it for the collective.
Yep.
And so it's time for us to take our sovereignty back, step into our power, own our crap. And it starts with the root chakra stuff, the home stuff, feeling safe, feeling secure, feeling stable. The right associated with the root chakra is the right to freaking exist.
Yeah, totally. Claiming you're right.
Right. So okay. I have codependency here, and there was something that you mentioned earlier. And codependency has been a big thing that has been coming up with me, like to talk about it more on my channel, because I feel like it manifests in this. I'm still learning this, and I really need to sit with it more. I feel like it manifests in such subtle ways that most people don't know or understand. And that's why I feel so called to like really dive into it, to start talking about it more so that we can liberate ourselves. Because, you know, even down to like the person who is codependent on the government, giving them that $1,200 check a month, that's codependency right there. Yeah. Like, let me fall within these lines so that I get these pennies, you know, on a monthly basis. Like that's one like super easy example. Or the whole narcissist empath situation where I don't feel like I'm enough, so let me have somebody here who love bombs or treats me a certain way and gives me this attention until I'm showing that I'm not good enough to get more, and then they're flipping on me and all this, like all that toxic stuff. So I feel like those are two big manifestations of codependency, and us keeping ourselves in a hell, like keeping ourselves within these limits and not authentic to who we are, because we feel like that we have to be a certain way to get what we want or need, instead of like giving that to ourselves.
So true. Yeah, the aloneness. So true aloneness becomes when you find your aloneness, then you're celebrating your existence. You're no longer in need of distraction in people or in storylines. So being at odds with the information or being tapped into all the information is a codependency. It's a seduction. It's a means of control. It's just another Hollywood program, and it was set up that way. We're being well played like instruments. We are being hunted, energy harvested. Shamans learn to stalk themselves and break free of the routines that make them heavy and predictable. They become mysterious. You start to, not rather than being afraid of losing sleep, you embrace the moment of being awake to go out into the world and face the dark, or do something that'll jolt your perception, something that'll make you really remember that moment, that day. Potent experiences will enliven you. They'll expand your comfort zone. You want to stretch your comfort zone all the time by coming out of routine. Then you won't be as easy to hunt. You won't be as predictable. You strategize. You start to see strategy, a way out of your limitations. You know, and it's so true. There's so many people that are holding themselves back when they could just be thriving at such profound levels. But they got caught in a projection of what others said about them or told them was going to happen. Like when a doctor says you have 6 months to live, it's such bullshit. There's no disease out there that can't be healed if a person's willing to do the work. And it's okay if they can't and they don't. It's not a good or bad thing. It's just a projection thing. It's a blame thing, a guilt thing mixed with a control thing. And it's those doctors truly believe what they're saying. They were trained to believe and to become cold, and so we became codependent on a system that's full of lies and mistruths, and germ theory it's all nonsense. It's been disproven where terrain theory explains our energetic condition, and it's been known about for a long time. How we break free from these forms of projection, this codependent, disabled, we've been reduced to slaves in the sense that we are trapped within the fears that have been handed to us. We keep allowing them to control our perception. So codependency with a partner, like becoming whole, makes it so that you're only seeking interdependency, and you become sensitive to the codependency as it starts to develop, and you counteract it. You create space. If you consume your partner, or if you consume each other, then you'll be too close, and you won't be able to have a stable foundation in which you could build. You want to give space and not take any more, or give any less. You just find that really unique balance, which is presented when you really find someone that's willing to do the work and face themselves. And if you're at odds with your partner, it's something within your own being that needed that process. And it's something within you. If you can change the whole thing, right? And so my elder said that there are only two tribes, the tribe of man and the tribe of woman. And when we learn to build a bridge between those two tribes and learn to work together, everything will heal. Nobody's doing that, but eventually they will.
Yeah. I mean, that's the exact opposite of what's being done right now, with skewing genders and talking about I'm a cat and all this. And then men can have children too, like absolute nonsense right now, to again create this like inclusion and everybody can fit in and do this, but like one sex is better than it's like creating this war between the sexes while creating this weird fluidity between them. And it just if people like really stopped to just step back and observe what's happening, they'd be like, this is complete and utter nonsense, and just laugh at it, because it's like, y'all are really eating out of the palm of the hand with this. Like, is this real life? You know what I mean? And it's all about warring between the sexes, breaking up the family, all of that stuff, like breaking that, like making it so that there can't be a bridging condition between there and life and healing and love and fluidity and, and creation.
Operation Lockstep was written by the Rockefellers, and it explained that it would break up the nuclear family. And that's a means to achieve ultimate control. Absolutely. And then the next step is to introduce designer drugs that allows everybody to be altered all the time on very specific, they're kind of like controlled, it'll be very intense. And that's why mushrooms are being legalized. And I'm not against any of this, because it is the nature of the projected reality that we are walking through. The matrix is designed for us, a training ground. It's going to be hard to watch most of our loved ones fall for the deception, to defend the inversion. But that's what will refine our resolve. We get to thank them for being a front row seat to the way in which their life unfolds, because they're going along with it. That will be a potent means to teach us and help us understand how fragile, how real, how intense all of this is. So rather than be like at odds with them for falling for it, thank them for sacrificing themselves so that we can see it up front and have compassion for them, for they know not what they do.
Yeah.
And
And it just, that all just goes to show how powerful mindset is, and
yeah,
how important it is for us to be mindful of our energy levels, what we're ingesting frequency wise, whether it's music, movies, who we're around, food, water, if we're breathing or not, because there are times where I'm like moving through stressful stuff and I'm like not breathing. And I have to stop and make sure that I breathe and take deep breaths. And having been a trainer, I really noticed so much breathing dysfunction in people. I had to teach people how to breathe, like physically put my hands on their stomach, like their abdomen and their chest, and be like, breathe through this hand first, and like teach them to reset their body and like actually kick on the parasympathetic nervous system so that they can get into a state of, be more, I guess, set up to get into a state of understanding should they get to that point, because more here we're just stress cascading, stress hormones, we're in this, we're in these like lower frequency realms and emotions when we're just like not taking a freaking deep breath. So,
yeah, Toltecs say that disease is a product of shallow breathing. It's that simple. Right. And so we think all these different things are out there to get us. It's just not quite like that. This is an energetic world. So everything is energy. Yeah. And fasting and intent and very simple things can resolve the most complex situations. But that can be terrifying for people. That's where everything comes to bat, is where they go to face their breath, the anxiety that happens. And that's why people like you and others that can walk people through nervous system repair are going to be crucial. The doctors aren't going to be helpful. There's just not a lot. We need to return to a way in which we intuitively, learn to trust and feel and listen to the signs and work with the shamans that can see. There's a lot of fake ones, but there's some real ones. And usually when you find a real one, it takes a while before you are comfortable enough to really face a mirror like that. A real mirror will expose everything in you, and people run from that shit of course. I mean, but eventually everyone wants to fit. We long to know ourselves. We long to quit lying and upholding this image of ourselves that isn't real, this social mask. And so shamans remove the social mask. And there's no way to be in codependency without a social mask. And so you come out of social power and you step into power. Social power is a very enticing trap to become seen or famous or wealthy or have social clout, have people, so you want to become abstract as a means to counteract any attention you're receiving. It's energy. You're being lent support if you're given attention. People are sending you love, then you get to ride that high. But it comes with, it's a double-edged sword. It's, if you allow yourself to be put on a pedestal, you're going to fall from that pedestal. You have to be, there is no above or below. I am not above or below anyone. I've learned more from the homeless, schizophrenic people than I have shamans, truly, because they show me, allow me to deal with aspects of my being that I couldn't learn about if I wasn't put in such intense situations. And so it's just a matter, again, of perspective and being thankful for all of it. So codependency is something that we can transcend but expecting to do it in a year's time. The ego wants to get things dealt with right now so we don't have to deal with that lesson again. But lessons come in spirals. You will revisit these challenges that you think you'll never step into. You'll revisit them because your blueprint needs to practice the theatrics again. It needs to go through and break free in stages. There are massive ego deaths that can happen where people do have the ability to undo their blueprint really quickly. And if they're resilient enough, they won't die from that ego death, like die. And so there are different versions of this, and shamans intervene on their apprentices and push them through ego death. They set them up to have ego death. And that's a lot of trust you would have to work with a teacher who can do that to you. But if your intuition tells you to work with somebody like that and you follow in your heart and it leads you to somebody like that. A lot of my teachers were shadow teachers in that they were out of balance, but my higher self told me to go learn from them anyways. So there's no rules here. There's just feelings to follow.
I love that. Oh, super, super beautiful. Okay. All right. So I want to ask one more thing, closing this out.
Yeah.
All right. So with okay, am I saying this right? So there's different form. Okay. I'm trying to figure out how to word this question. So hell exists in different realms, as you mentioned earlier. Am I saying that correctly? Okay.
Yeah, there are different layers of the onion, and you could visit places that could be considered to be the stereotypical eternal damnation layer.
Like the religious one that we hear about in church and everything.
When a person dies, they can get caught in that layer of the onion in their confusion rather than kind of move on. So we go into a long dream when we die. It's like a riddle. If we haven't dealt with our emotional processes, if we haven't faced ourselves in this life, then we'll go into sort of an in-between place where we sort of face the ghost of Christmas past and all that stuff. You really face your life and process it, and you can get caught.
Wow.
Not only there, but like here, you can get stuck as a ghost in a sense, not able to move forward.
Wow. Okay. That's not even what the question I had was, but essentially I'm starting to feel like there's more than one soul trap to fall into. Okay. Because
There are things worse than death.
yeah, it sounds like it. So and then the whole with religion, like the fire and brimstone and the lake of eternal blah blah, all that crap. It's like similar to the doctor saying you have 6 months to live, and it's like, oh my god, I'm not worthy of healing myself and worthy of being here longer than 6 months, like to the date, so I'm gonna press eject. It's similar to sitting on the pew in church, ingesting all of that, whatever, like this is what you have to if you don't accept, Jesus into your heart right now, and you're gonna burn in the fiery lake and be eaten by this eternally, it's like
Curses. They're cursing you.
curses. And then people fall into that trap of accepting that curse, and then they live their entirety of their life after that being afraid of breaking the rules, and like, oh, God doesn't love me anymore, so I might end up in hell on the other side. And because I got to the point where like I've been breaking my religious programming for like years now. And then I had the question of these people having NDEs that actually see go to heaven or go to hell, but that's them going into those realms, I'm guessing. Okay, so that makes sense to me now, because I was like, I don't know. I don't fully believe that those are just physical places that we go, and that's it. So that makes sense to me now that there's those realms. So are demons entities or ideas? That was my question.
Yeah, so we have the flyers are entities. The
Mhm.
archons, they're demonic in a sense that they're vampiric, parasitic, predatorial. They're a predator, but we are a predator too. Everything really is. Everything seeks energy. So these forces just seek energy. Entities of the night exist in the wilderness. If you go face the world, the energetic layers, you'll encounter beings that are not physical. We are surrounded by non-physical, inorganic energy. We share this world with other beings that we can't see, but shamans can. And these inorganic beings have much more harmonious relationships with trees and plants than we do. And so we're not very liked here because we're so unconscious. But if you make a relationship with the mother, then you're guided. She'll walk you through this world. She'll show you where to go and what alley to walk down and what alley not to walk down. And you don't have to learn how to, I mean, your greatest self-defense is your intuition, and just being in a state of love. If you're just beaming with affection, it's very hard for people to hurt you. But if they can get you to get scared, if they can get you to fucking contract and come out of your power, and you lower your eyes. But if you stare at anything that may be a threat, and you don't let them unlock from the eyes, and you stay in love, it's very hard for them to actually hurt you. It's energetic.
Yeah.
And so this is a weird matrix like realm in which you can learn to no longer be controlled by fear, and you stop following the rules and you start following your heart, because the rules are meant to turn you into easy prey. Every time you submit, when you wear a mask, little part of you gets consumed by your submission. But at the same time, if you're in China or Russia and you're trying to figure out how to get into how to survive, you might want to have a little submission in order to get to where you can build your energy enough to where you can change your storyline. It's not, you don't want to pretend you're stronger than you are. You want to find out where you're at and operate from that place, because we're constantly spinning our wheels thinking we're more powerful than we are, and also telling ourselves that we're not as far along as we are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We really struggle to just be so raw and honest about our ego and where it's at and where our energy level's at and where we are in our triggers. And so rather than look at these events that happen that trigger us as negative, we look at them as lessons so that we know ourselves. Every time you're triggered, offended, that's preparing you, giving you a glimpse of the aspect of your being that is undeveloped, and that is universe is pointing out needs attention, love, forgiveness for that part of you. And when you forgive yourself, you automatically forgive everybody. When you truly forgive yourself, you extend that forgiveness beyond you into all creatures and all things and all of it. That's when you transcend the world, because it becomes a place of adventure rather than a prison.
Yeah, that's so awesome. I've talked about forgiveness a few times over my last few videos, because I've been doing some pretty heavy forgiveness work. And that's one of the lies that we're taught, at least I was taught growing up, is like, you have to go to this person and ask them for forgiveness, and like, you need to forgive this person, and and it's like, one of my mentors right now, she says forgiveness is no one's business or no one else's business, and forgiveness is an act of self-love. Yeah. Like, when we get to a point where we can forgive ourselves for how we showed up in that situation, how we didn't show up, how we didn't speak our truth, how we didn't stand up for ourselves or protect ourselves, and just look for the God spark in that person, and like, let that be all that exists, is the love, because that's the truth, then that transmutes everything. and that sets us free. So I love that you spoke on forgiveness. Yeah. So did I cut you off? Were you about to say something else?
I mean, it's just this is the solution, is that we hand our power over to these things that we think are to blame for our situation when we are at odds with it. Rather than forgive, we're literally keeping it going.
Yeah.
We're lending these beings that feed off negative energy, and then we're giving them what they want by hating on them, right? But it's so hard not to, because you're watching these people get away with some crazy shit. You're like, oh my God. It's
And
so
then we don't even really know if they're getting away with it. Like it's all, like you said, it's an act. So we're only seeing what we're being shown, which there could be A, B, and C behind the scenes happening.
totally. Yeah, it's theater. And so our getting attached to it is missing out on our potential. We could be traveling and healing and going inward and really doing the work, but we're constantly getting caught in what is the future. And that's why there's always these distractions to make sure that we think something's about to go bad, so that we're constantly in our root chakra fear, and we're not able to access uh our whole chakra system needs to be on board. And when it gets caught in one area, then the nervous system gets hijacked, and when we're easy to control. Food can help you, but shamans aren't. Eventually, it's not so much about that. It's about breaking free of the illusion of the physicality. But until you're there, until you're shamanic, you want to heal your body in every possible way that you can. But there comes a time where you get to not that I eat unhealthy necessarily, but it doesn't, if and when I do, it doesn't derail me like it used to, right? Because I've cultivated the personal power that's needed to sort of transcend all of that. Nervous system health is all disease is linked to stress, which is linked to breath. It's so much more simple than the complexity of all this disease and stuff that they're trying to make us live in fear over. And it's another means to liberate, come out of their hellish projected world, is by letting your death, your future self, inform you. Death is an advisor. So we want to feel death. We don't want to pretend it's not coming. We want to prepare. We want to become intimate with the force of death. And so shamans say death is the player and life is the arena. If it wasn't for death, we wouldn't be behaving the way we are. The thing that gives us impetus, that makes us want to access ecstatic experience and all the longing that we feel, is because our duration is coming to an end. We're dying. And when we can live in that consciousness, then we can have so much more life. So you want to have these little ego deaths so that you can really live. Otherwise, you aren't being authentic. You're not really doing the things that truly matter. And so that deathbed moment, being around people that are dying, or having access to that feeling, it brings that sober perspective. And our time is fleeting. And so it's like, once you're at your deathbed, it's like it was just like a snap of the finger your whole life. But a shaman learns to expand that snap, turn it into an eternity. They're both at the same time, and those two contrasting elements are what liberate us from the linear. When you realize that a single moment can be an eternity, and an entire life, once it's over, it's like it never existed. Time is like Chronos. It's sort of like Father Time is sort of the linear means in which we are experiencing intensity. And so it doesn't matter how long you live, it has to do with your ability to stop time and really witness your existence. Then everything, your perspective from the rest of your life, will be different.
Well, thank you so much. That was like really awesome. Really in-depth and insightful. So I'm excited to continue with the focusing more on the heaven aspect. But yeah, you all, please look up Joel's channel. I will have it linked below. It's Perceiver on YouTube. Also, all of his other contact, email. You on Instagram or
Joel.Schaefer.
okay,
So
website.
Joel.Schafer.
Okay, cool. So I will have all of Joel's information down below. And please remember to like, share, subscribe, comment. You all, we love to have the feedback. So, all right, Joel, thank you so much for joining me today. You all remember you are sovereign, powerful, worthy, and loved. Keep up the great work. I love you all. Bye.
Yeah.